The second I slid open my glass door that Saturday morning, I just stood there, coffee in hand, trying to process the circus happening in my backyard. And honestly, it was so absurd I half expected a hidden camera crew to jump out and yell gotcha. I mean, picture it. A mob of women in identical pink sashes, lugging balloons and tables through my side gate, marching past my grill like they'd just rented the place for the day, and smack in the middle, there's Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, barking into a megaphone, clipboard in hand, acting like she was about to launch an invasion. You know what I mean? There's a certain breed of neighbor you can spot from a mile away, and Karen, well, she practically comes with a warning label. So there I am, bleary-eyed, wearing old sweatpants, and a teenager with a plastic tiara asks if I can help unload cakes from the trunk of her minivan, which is blocking my driveway. For a split second, I just laughed, because the audacity of it, right? They decided my private pool was their party venue. My first words were more of a growl than a greeting, telling them they were trespassing, but Karen just turned around and smiled that sweet, fake smile she saves for the PDA and starts hollering about HOA rights and how she'd reserved my pool for her 50th birthday, waving some paper around like a royal decree. She completely ignored the fact that my house, my pool, every square foot of land, had been carved out of the HOA 5 years back in a legal fight she herself lost. And trust me, she lost it loudly. Some of her party guests started to look nervous when I explained, as calmly as I could, that this wasn't a community pool. I hadn't given any permission, and in fact, I had the court paperwork to prove it. But Karen just kept cranking up the volume, calling over her reinforcements, acting like if she yelled loud enough, reality would bend to her will. By mid-morning, my backyard looked like a discount county fair, streamers wrapped around my deck, inflatable flamingos bobbing in the pool, and someone had set up a Bluetooth speaker thumping bass lines so loud it rattled the windows. Karen strutted over, dripping in a shimmering cover-up, sunglasses perched like she was shooting a perfume ad, and told me flat out that this would be the best party in the neighborhood, whether I liked it or not. Her tone was almost gleeful, like she enjoyed stirring the pot, and you better believe I knew her reputation for weaponizing fake HOA rules, writing phony citations, even calling the cops on neighbors just for looking at her funny. I started thinking a couple moves ahead, because the last thing I needed was to get baited into a scene and end up as a meme online. I slipped back inside, watched from my kitchen window, and made note of every violation. The boxes of booze, the DJ's extension cord snaking from my garage, strangers helping themselves to my outlets without even a knock. My phone started buzzing with texts from neighbors, most of them cheering me on to make it epic, warning me not to let Karen steamroll me like she had with others. Honestly, I could have called the police right then and there, but part of me wanted to let her dig herself in deeper, because this wasn't just about a pool anymore. It was about the years she'd spent terrorizing the neighborhood with her power plays. I remembered how she'd humiliated poor Mrs. Paul over a recycling bin, tried to evict the Wilsons for painting their mailbox blue. Now here she was, dropping cake into my pool for Instagram, telling her guests that community rights trumped actual property lines. And that's when I remembered my security system, hidden cameras, remote-activated gate locks, motion sensors under the deck, and, yeah, a little low-voltage deterrent on the pool, meant to spook raccoons after dark. I'd never thought I'd use it on people, but the thought crept in, not to hurt anyone, but to give Karen a taste of what it feels like when someone else sets the rules. Just as her DJ called for a pool takeover, the crowd leapt in, splashing around like they owned the place. Karen posed for selfies at the edge, shouting about showing power to stubborn neighbors. And somehow, in the middle of all that noise, I found a weird sense of calm. My anger simmered down to something cold and precise. I went to my basement, rested my hand on the switch labeled perimeter current, heart pounding, not from nerves but from the anticipation of flipping the script. I pictured the scene. First, a warning siren, then a gentle current making the water shimmer, nothing dangerous, just enough to freeze everyone in place. I ran the sequence in my head a dozen times, making sure nothing could go wrong. And then, I did it. The siren wailed, the music died, and for the first time all morning, you could hear the sound of Karen's bravado hitting a brick wall. The party turned instantly from wild to silent, guests staring at each other, Karen trying to play it off as just a timer, but her hands were shaking. I stepped outside, calm as you please, and announced, with the whole party watching, that they were trespassing on private property, that safety systems were now active, and that if they didn't leave, the police would be next. My voice carried across the water, steady as a judge passing sentence. The teenager with the tiara grabbed her towel and bolted. The DJ yanked his cable from my outlet. Balloons bounced against the fence. The transition from chaos to awkward silence happened so fast. Even I was surprised. But I knew, in that moment, the story was only getting started. Because as Karen's guests drifted out, muttering about misunderstandings, she wasn't defeated, not by a long shot. Hours later, I watched her regroup in my driveway, sunglasses on, clipboard clutched to her chest, whispering with her most loyal friends like a general plotting a comeback. She plopped down in a folding chair, barking at her phone, and I could practically see the gears turning. That's how Karen works. When reality doesn't bend, she tries to rewrite it. Sure enough, by late afternoon, she was back, and this time, she brought a man in a cheap suit with a safety inspector badge that looked like it came out of a cereal box. She played it up for the audience, whining about how she was almost electrocuted as a guest in my pool, trying to frame me as the villain. I met them at the side gate, filming everything on my phone, asked the inspector for his credentials, and watched him wilt when I pressed him for a license number. Karen waved her hands, tried to steer the conversation back to dangerous conditions, but I wasn't having it. I handed them my paperwork, the exemption, the legal settlement, the safety certs, watching the fake inspector's face go pale as he realized he'd been set up as a pawn. Karen stormed off, promising to take it to the board, even though she knew my house wasn't under HOA control. Night came, and as the pool lights glowed, I sat on my porch, sipping tea, replaying the day in my mind. The neighborhood felt different, less afraid, almost lighter. Messages poured in from neighbors, thanking me, sharing their own stories of Karen's bullying, even offering to back me up if things got legal. I felt, not heroic, just vindicated, like maybe the spell she'd cast over the block was finally breaking. But Karen doesn't quit. By the next morning, she had staged a press conference on my sidewalk, with folding chairs, banners reading community safety, and a fresh batch of committee members clutching clipboards. She gave a dramatic speech about private installations endangering the neighborhood, tried to spin her own trespassing as a noble rescue operation. I watched the whole thing from inside, live-streamed it to my lawyer, waited for the perfect moment, then walked out with my folder of legal docs, and calmly set the record straight for everyone to see. The crowd shifted, some asked real questions, and when Karen tried to push a petition, all she had were a few shaky signatures and a pile of doubt. As the crowd thinned, Karen tried one last-ditch move, a protest. She rallied her people, marched them to my gate, shouting into her bullhorn about rogue homeowners. News crews rolled up, cameras flashing, mics shoved in my face. I stood my ground, presented the facts, and told everyone, clear as day, that this was private property and that the law was on my side. The police showed up, sorted through the claims, and sided with me, right there, in front of the cameras. You could almost see the fight drain out of Karen, the crowd dispersing, her voice cracking as she tried to rally them one last time. That evening, the neighborhood was quiet, almost peaceful. A neighbor dropped off a coffee card and a note. Thanks for standing up. I thought about the whole ridiculous journey, from trespassing party to community reckoning. I realized Karen's power had always been built on fear, on everyone else giving in, and once that spell was broken, there wasn't much left but noise. As I sat by the pool that night, feet in the water, I let the calm settle in, thought about how it all could have gone wrong if I'd let anger run the show, and felt quietly proud that I hadn't. Because in the end, what really won wasn't outrage or spectacle, but steady patience, documentation, and refusing to get dragged into her chaos. It wasn't a fairy tale victory. Karen still lurked across the street, but her empire of intimidation was crumbling. Neighbors who'd been silent started to speak up, the news ran stories about HOA overreach, and I realized my little pool had become a battleground for something bigger. And yeah, maybe tomorrow she'll try again. A new rumor, a drone over the yard, some half-baked legal threat. Maybe this won't ever really end so much as fade into a new normal. But as I sat there, watching the water shimmer under the porch light, I knew I'd done what mattered. I'd set a boundary, not just for me, but for everyone watching. I'd shown that you don't have to give in, you don't have to fight dirty, you just have to stand your ground with your head up and your evidence ready. So let me ask you, where do you stand on this? Do you side with the enforcers or the rebels, the rule makers or the rule breakers? Ever had a Karen of your own try to take over your space? Drop your wildest HOA stories, your thoughts on justice and boundaries, down below, because honestly, these days, the line between neighbor and nemesis is thinner than you think.